The day the Galactic Council made their announcement, the skies above Earth lit up with colors never seen before. Giant alien ships hovered in low orbit, their silver hulls glowing against the sun. People on the streets pointed and cheered, recording everything with their cameras, believing they were witnessing the dawn of a new age. The aliens spoke through grand holograms, their voices smooth and confident. They declared that Earth was now under their protection, that no harm would come to humanity while their fleets watched over the skies. To ordinary men and women, this sounded like a promise from the heavens after all. These were beings who had traveled the stars for centuries, with knowledge and technology far beyond human reach. At least, that is what most people believed, But deep beneath the surface of Earth, in rooms where no cameras could enter, the leaders of humanity gathered, their faces calm, some even smiling faintly as the hologram played. They did not cheer. They did not clap. Instead, they exchanged quiet looks, because they understood something the aliens did not. The Council thought humans were fragile, young, and in desperate need of guardianship. But Earth had secrets that no alien could guess, hidden behind locked doors and buried far from curious eyes. The truth was that humans were not weak, and they were not helpless. Miles Carter, a quiet engineer working in an underground base, looked up at the newsfeed on the wall. He saw the alien ships in the sky, shining with authority. People below were waving and shouting with joy, but he only shook his head, his hands greasy from fixing a massive engine core. Around him the walls vibrated with the hum of machines, and the secret human dreadnought they were building was almost ready. He whispered under his breath, "They really think they can protect us." And a small smile touched his lips, for he knew what the aliens could never imagine. In Washington, Commander Laura Mitchell walked into the dimly lit war room, the air thick with tension. Holographic displays showed the positions of alien ships around Earth. Their fleets spread like a shield. Politicians debated loudly, some saying they should accept the Council's help, others whispering that trust would only lead to chains. Laura stood still, her sharp eyes focused, and when she finally spoke, her words silenced the room. "Let them watch. Let them believe they are protecting us. Meanwhile, we will continue." Her voice carried a calm strength. Everyone in the room knew exactly what she meant. Humanity had a plan, and no alien would ever see it coming. So as the aliens themselves moved with pride, their admirals gave speeches. Their ships broadcast music across human cities. They told Earth's people that danger was everywhere, that empires beyond the stars could strike at any time. But they, the Great Council, would defend Earth like their own home. Children cheered, banners were raised, and ordinary families felt safe for the first time in centuries. They went to bed that night thinking they were safe under alien wings. But in the quiet corners of human society, the laughter was soft, hidden, and knowing. Admiral Henry Lawson, an older man with weathered skin and sharp eyes, leaned back in his chair as the alien hologram filled the council chamber. Around him, human officers stayed silent, listening to every word. When the alien speaker declared Earth a protected world, Henry chuckled quietly. No one else dared to laugh, but he did, because he remembered the countless years of secrecy, the thousands of hours building ships in hidden hangars, the sacrifices made to create weapons powerful enough to terrify. Even the oldest empires, Henry Lawson knew something the aliens never would. Earth had prepared for this day long before the Council even thought about them. Out in the streets, a young woman named Karen Walker held her little brother's hand as they watched alien ships glimmer in the night sky. Her brother's eyes were wide with wonder. "They're here to save us, aren't they?" he asked. Karen smiled faintly and nodded, but inside she felt uneasy. The ships looked beautiful, but something about their presence felt heavy, like a chain wrapped around Earth's neck. She wondered why her father, a retired pilot, had warned her not to trust outsiders. His words echoed in her head. Humans defend themselves, remember that. She did not yet understand the meaning, but she would soon. And across the world, people celebrated. Fireworks burst into the air, children waved glowing sticks, and news stations ran endless stories of how humanity had entered a new golden age. Yet in secret bases beneath mountains, in hidden stations deep under the sea, humans did not celebrate. Instead, they worked harder. Engines roared, steel bent, and giant machines slowly took shape. Each piece of metal carried a silent promise. Humanity would not bow, they would not need saving. The aliens swore to defend Earth with all their strength, but in the shadows of that oath, humans only laughed and whispered among themselves. You sure about that? They knew the truth. A truth that would one day shake the galaxy. The promise of alien guardianship was only the beginning, and soon the universe would learn why humans never asked for protection in the first place. Beneath the waves of the Pacific Ocean, far deeper than any submarine had gone, lay a secret base built by human hands. It was carved into the rock of the ocean floor, its walls lined with glowing panels and steel so strong that even the crushing pressure of the deep sea could not break it. There, men and women in dark uniforms worked without rest. Their voices low, their movements quick. They were building something the aliens above the skies had no idea about. It was not just one ship, but an entire fleet, hidden away where no outsider could ever see. And then Miles Carter wiped the sweat from his forehead, his face smudged with grease and his hands rough from years of work. In front of him stood the colossal engine core of a dreadnought, taller than a building, its surface alive with veins of glowing blue light. This was not a normal machine. This was power, pure and raw. The kind of power that could break an empire. Miles tapped the console, listening to the low thrum of energy, a sound that reminded him of a heartbeat that belonged to a beast sleeping under the ocean, waiting to be woken when the time was right. And on the surface, alien fleets patrolled above Earth, their shining ships floating with grace, their crews confident that humans were safe under their guardianship. But miles below them, Laura Mitchell walked through the corridors of the hidden base, her boots echoing against the metal floors, her sharp eyes scanning every detail. She had been chosen as one of the commanders to oversee the secret project, and she carried the weight of humanity's hope on her shoulders. Soldiers saluted her as she passed. Engineers nodded in respect. She was calm, steady, and always watchful. She knew that Earth's survival depended on silence and patience. None. She entered the command chamber, where massive holograms of ships hovered above the floor, each one a design of a warship, cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts. The room glowed with the soft blue light of the displays, and voices filled the air with reports. Iron Resolve is nearly ready for engine ignition, one officer said. The Eclipse carrier will begin final testing next week, another reported. Laura listened quietly, then raised her hand to silence them. Good, she said, her voice calm but firm. But remember, not a word leaves this base. The aliens above think they are our shield. Let them think that. The longer they believe we are weak, the stronger we become. The men and women nodded, determination in their eyes. Each of them knew the danger. If the aliens ever discovered what humanity was building, war could come far too soon, but none of them faltered. They had trained for this. They had sacrificed families, homes, and ordinary lives, all to keep the secret alive, and deep in their hearts they carried a quiet pride. Humanity was not only surviving, humanity was preparing to rise. In another hidden location, not in the sea but on the barren surface of the moon, another base, hummed with energy. The gray dust outside gave no hint of what was buried beneath, but underground, tunnels stretched for miles, connecting hangars where massive ships rested in silence, their sleek black hulls absorbing the light. Each ship was armed with weapons no alien had ever seen. Weapons designed from human ingenuity, weapons that bent the rules of physics to the breaking point. Scientists walked the corridors carrying data pads filled with calculations, while pilots trained in simulators that mimicked the controls of the warships they would one day fly. One of those pilots was Ethan Brooks, young but sharp, his reflexes tested daily in grueling drills. He sat in a simulator pod, gripping the controls, his eyes locked on the holographic display of enemy ships. He moved the joystick with precision, dodging fire and returning volleys with perfect aim. The system beeped as he scored a direct hit. His instructor nodded approvingly. Good work, Brooks. But Ethan only smirked and said, Good won't be enough when the time comes. He wanted to be ready for the real fight, The one no one outside the bases even knew was coming. Then, the humans had been underestimated for too long. The aliens thought Earth was still crawling, still too young to stand on its own. But the truth was different. Humans had learned from every invasion, every war, every threat that came their way. They had studied the mistakes of others and turned them into strengths. In silence, they had advanced their technology. In shadows, they had built weapons of fear. And in secret, they had trained warriors who could challenge the galaxy itself. And back in the ocean base, Miles Carter leaned against the rail of the engine chamber, staring at the pulsing glow of the dreadnought's heart. He thought of the alien ships floating proudly in the skies above, guarding Earth like a child. He almost laughed. They didn't know that right beneath their noses, an entire fleet lay hidden, ready to rise at any moment. He whispered to himself, "Let them think we're helpless. It makes the reveal that much sweeter." The sound of the engine throbbed through the walls, steady and alive, as if agreeing with him. And so the humans continued, unseen, unheard, but always moving forward, while the aliens broadcast messages of peace and protection. Humans built monsters in the dark, spaceships that could tear through fleets like paper, warships that could turn stars into weapons. Every bolt tightened, every engine tested, every weapon calibrated was a step closer to the day when the galaxy would finally see the truth. The aliens swore to defend Earth, but in the silence of the hidden bases, the humans only smiled and whispered, "You sure about that?" The alien commanders loved to hear their own voices. They stood tall in front of cameras, their armor polished, their banners shining, their voices calm and full of pride. They told humans again and again that Earth was now safe, that no enemy would ever reach them as long as the Galactic Council stood guard. Their fleets hovered in orbit, their cannons glowed with power, and their patrols stretched far into space. Every word they spoke carried arrogance like a teacher talking to small children. The humans clapped politely, but in the shadows, they smiled to themselves. Non-news stations showed alien admirals giving speeches. Crowds of humans gathered in city squares to watch the giant holograms. The aliens promised that Earth was now a protected world, one of the jewels of the galaxy. Children cheered, families waved, and people believed they were finally safe. They thought the aliens were kind and noble, standing between them and the dangers of the universe. But behind closed doors, in secret meeting halls, humanity's true leaders laughed quietly because they knew something the aliens would never admit. They were not protecting Earth at all. They were unknowingly guarding the most dangerous secret in the galaxy. Admiral Henry Lawson sat in the War Council chamber, a glass of water in his hand as the alien hologram flickered above the long table. The alien commander, a tall being with golden eyes, spoke with slow dignity. "Earth is under our shield now. No one will harm you. We are your protectors." The room was filled with politicians, diplomats, and generals. Most of them kept straight faces, but Lawson leaned back in his chair and chuckled softly. He was too old to hide his amusement. He remembered battles long before this day. He remembered the hidden sacrifices. He remembered the quiet growth of humanity's strength. And he found it funny that the aliens thought they were the strong ones. He tapped his finger against the table, and those close to him leaned forward. "They believe they're defending us," Lawson whispered, his eyes glinting. "But they're really standing guard over our greatest weapon." Some officers smiled, some shook their heads in disbelief. But all of them knew he was right, because under the seas, under the mountains, and across the dark side of the moon, humanity's fleet was almost ready. Fleets so advanced, so powerful, that even the most ancient empires would tremble when they saw them. And Miles Carter worked tirelessly in the engine chambers. He wasn't a man of speeches or politics, but he had seen the broadcasts too. While aliens promised safety, Miles tightened bolts on a cannon that could tear apart an entire cruiser in one shot. He laughed to himself as he listened to the alien voices echoing from the screens. "Protect us?" he muttered. "No. You're babysitting the biggest storm this galaxy will ever see." The other engineers nearby nodded silently, each one carrying the same thought, each one knowing the truth, that the aliens were blind to the danger growing right beneath their noses, Then Commander Laura Mitchell walked through the underground hangar where massive ships rested like sleeping giants, their sleek hulls painted black, their names glowing faintly on their sides. Iron Resolve, Midnight, Fire, Silent Thunder, each ship was a promise, each one a blade hidden in the dark. As she passed, pilots stood at attention, saluting her, their faces sharp with determination. She returned their salute, but her mind was on the arrogance of the aliens. She had listened to their speeches, she had watched them parade across human skies, and every time, she smiled thinly because she knew they would one day choke on their own pride. Because the alien commanders did not realize that their presence gave Earth the perfect cover. Their patrols kept rival empires away. Their fleets scared off raiders and smugglers. No one dared to approach Earth while the Council stood watch, and that gave humanity all the time they needed in a way. The aliens were helping build the very power that would one day overshadow them, like guards proudly standing at the gate of a castle, unaware that the treasure inside was arming itself for war. In the homes of ordinary people, the arrogance of the aliens was taken as kindness. A woman named Claire Matthews sat with her children watching the alien broadcast. Her son clapped happily, saying, "They're heroes, Mom. They'll protect us forever." Claire smiled at him, but her husband, a retired Marine, shook his head slowly. "Don't mistake pride for protection," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight the children did not understand. He knew what the aliens did not. The humans were not weak. They were only waiting for the right moment. Chunsun, the arrogance of the aliens grew stronger each day. Their admirals held grand ceremonies, awarding each other medals for keeping Earth safe. They invited human leaders to watch. They marched their soldiers down human streets as if Earth belonged to them. The crowds waved, the cameras flashed, and the galaxy saw Earth as a child under alien care. But in the shadows of bunkers and hidden bases, laughter echoed quietly. The humans were not offended. They let the aliens boast, because every speech, every patrol, every declaration gave them more time to finish their fleet. None. And so it continued, the aliens standing tall with pride, declaring themselves the shield of Earth, while the humans stayed silent, calm and patient. They did not argue. They did not reveal their hand. Instead, they whispered among themselves, "Let them think we are small. Let them believe we need them." The longer they believe, the sweeter the truth will taste. The arrogance of the aliens blinded them, and the humans knew that one day soon, the galaxy would see who truly held the power. The test came sooner than anyone expected. A fleet of raiders slipped into the system fast and hungry, their ships dark and sharp like blades. They had no interest in peace. They wanted plunder. They wanted Earth's resources. And they thought the alien defenders were just another obstacle to cut through. Alarms rang across the alien patrol fleets as the raiders opened fire. Beams of red light streaked across space, smashing into shields. Explosions rippled in the dark void. The first battle for Earth had begun. The alien admirals rushed to respond. Their fleets turned to intercept. Formations spread across the stars. Thousands of alien cannons lit up the darkness. The battle was fierce. Bright blasts and fiery wrecks spinning away. For a while it seemed the aliens had control. Their numbers were strong, their ships swift, but the raiders were merciless. They struck from angles the Council ships weren't ready for. Their weapons burned hotter than expected, and one by one, alien cruisers were torn apart. The proud shield of the Council was cracking. 10 on Earth. People watched the skies. Streaks of fire lit up the night. Even from the ground the flashes could be seen. Some cheered, thinking the aliens would win. Others gasped in fear as news channels reported losses. Families huddled in front of glowing screens, listening to alien voices still promising victory. But the truth was clear. The defenders were struggling, their lines bending, their confidence shaken, and above them the raiders were pushing closer and closer to Earth's orbit. In the hidden base beneath the Pacific, alarms blared as human officers tracked the battle from secret consoles. The war room was tense. Blue holograms showed the alien fleets faltering, red icons of raider ships pressing in. Commander Laura Mitchell stood at the center, her jaw tight, her eyes never leaving the display. Around her men and women looked nervous. If the aliens broke, Earth itself would be exposed. One officer turned to her, whispering, "Should we intervene?" Laura stayed quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Prepare the iron resolve," she said, and the room fell silent at those words. And Miles Carter stood in the engine chamber, sweat on his brow as the lights around him turned red. His heart pounded as the massive dreadnought around him hummed to life. The iron resolve had never left its dock. It was a beast no one outside the base knew existed. Its engines roared, vibrating through steel walls. Water churned above as the sea itself trembled. Miles checked the readouts, his voice steady but low. "All systems green. She's ready." In that moment, he knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The aliens in orbit fought desperately, but the raiders were tearing holes through their formations. Just as the first enemy ships began to break through, a shadow moved in the dark, huge and silent. And then it appeared. A ship unlike any other, sleek and black, its armor glowing faintly with lines of blue light larger than any cruiser in the fight. It slid out of the dark like a predator. The iron resolve had risen. The raiders froze for a split second, their scanners unable to identify it. The alien fleets gasped, unsure what had just entered their battlefield. And then came the first volley. The iron resolve fired. A single blast from its main cannon streaked across space, bright and pure. It cut straight through a raider battleship, splitting it in two with a thunderous explosion. The wreck burned, drifting lifelessly. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then, the humans fired again, and again. Each shot precise, each hit devastating. In minutes, 3 raider cruisers were gone, their wreckage scattering across the void. The tide of battle shifted instantly, and from the ground, humans looked up and saw a new light in the sky, brighter than the rest, moving with deadly grace. They didn't know what it was, but they cheered as raider ships fell burning. Children pointed and shouted with joy, thinking it was another alien, protector. But in the secret war room, Laura Mitchell and Henry Lawson exchanged a look. They knew the truth. It was humanity's own creation, and the galaxy had just witnessed the first step of their reveal. And the alien admirals stared in shock. Their pride shattered. They had claimed to be the shield of Earth. But here, in front of billions of watching eyes, a single human warship had done what their entire fleet struggled to accomplish. Whispers spread across their command decks. "What is that ship? Who built it?" No one had an answer, but fear and awe filled their voices. The arrogance they once carried began to fade, replaced with doubt. The raiders, realizing the danger, tried to regroup, but the iron resolve was relentless. Its weapons ripped through their formation. Its shields held against every desperate strike, and when its engines flared, it moved with a speed no one thought possible for a ship its size. It fought like a predator among prey. The raiders began to flee, their courage broken, their ships scattering into the void, and in minutes the battle was over. In silence followed, broken only by the hum of surviving ships. Alien fleets drifted, stunned, their commanders speechless. And then the mysterious dreadnought turned, its black hull gliding back into the shadows. Without a word it vanished, as if it had never been there at all, leaving behind only wreckage and questions. And non-Earth. The people celebrated, thinking the aliens had saved them. But in the hidden chambers beneath the sea, Miles Carter smiled. Faintly as he wiped his greasy hands, Laura Mitchell stood tall, her voice calm. "The test is complete," she said. Admiral Lawson chuckled under his breath. And the galaxy just had its first glimpse of the storm. The iron resolve had fired for the first time, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same again. Whispers began the very next day. They moved through the alien fleets like smoke in the wind. No one wanted to admit it openly, but every commander, every soldier, and every council official had seen what happened. A single unknown ship had entered the battlefield and destroyed the raiders with ease. It had fired weapons no one could identify. Its armor looked unlike anything in the records, and its engines moved like nothing they had ever seen. It wasn't alien technology. That much was clear. It was something else. Something terrifying, and though the humans on the ground still cheered for their so-called protectors, the aliens themselves were no longer so confident. And on space stations across the galaxy, reports spread fast. Merchants spoke in hushed voices about a black warship that appeared out of nowhere and tore through enemy fleets. Smugglers said their contacts near Earth were whispering of a hidden fleet. Admirals on distant worlds held emergency meetings. Some thought the humans had been given the ship by another empire. Some argued it was impossible for Earth to build such a thing. But none could ignore the truth of what they had seen with their own eyes. Humanity had revealed a piece of its power, and even that small glimpse was enough to make the galaxy nervous. Miles Carter sat in the engine room of the Iron Resolve, his clothes still stained with oil and sweat from the last battle. The ship's heart pulsed with a steady hum. Stronger now after its first true fight, he leaned against the railing and let out a long breath, his hands shaking slightly. It wasn't fear. It was adrenaline still running through his veins. He remembered the moment the cannon fired, the explosion lighting up the void, the silence of the alien fleets as they realized what had just happened. Miles smiled to himself, proud but quiet. He knew this was only the beginning. Commander. Laura Mitchell stood on the command deck, staring at the stars through the massive viewing screen. Her crew worked around her, running diagnostics, checking damage. But the Iron Resolve had taken little harm. Its shields had held. Its weapons had worked perfectly. Laura felt a cold satisfaction in her chest. She knew the whispers were already spreading, and she wanted them to. The galaxy needed to know that Earth was not helpless, that humans were not children hiding under alien wings. She turned to her officers, her voice steady. "We keep building, we keep training. The raiders were only the first test, bigger storms are coming, and when they do, we will be ready." Nan Admiral Henry Lawson, back on Earth, listened to the reports with a calm smile. Politicians demanded answers. Some wanted to reveal the truth, to tell the public that humanity had its own fleet. But Lawson only raised his hand and silenced them. "Not yet," he said firmly. "Let them wonder, let the galaxy whisper. But we do not speak. The longer they doubt, the longer we have to prepare." His words carried weight, and even the most restless leaders fell quiet, because deep down they knew he was right. Patience was their greatest weapon. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, alien admirals debated in private. Was it really a human ship? One asked, his voice low. Perhaps it was a prototype from another empire. Another argued, but no evidence could be found, and the scans taken during the battle pointed in one direction. The mysterious dreadnought had launched from Earth's orbit. The realization made many uneasy. If humanity could build one ship like that, how many more were hidden? The thought gnawed at them, keeping them awake at night. And Ethan Brooks, still training in the simulators on the lunar base, heard the rumors too. Pilots whispered in the halls, some saying they had glimpsed the Iron Resolve leaving the dock. Others swore they had seen schematics for even larger ships. Ethan only grinned, gripping the controls tighter. He wanted his turn. He wanted to be the one sitting in the cockpit when humanity revealed its hand fully. He practiced harder, pushing the simulator to its limits, sweat dripping from his forehead as he shouted, "Faster, sharper, stronger." He knew his time would come, and across Earth, the people lived their lives as if nothing had changed. Markets opened, children went to school, families ate dinner together. Most still believed the alien fleets were their true protectors. They didn't know that the victory had been won by their own kind. But in the shadows, quiet pride spread among those few who did know. Scientists smiled to themselves as they worked late nights. Engineers tightened bolts with new determination, and soldiers trained with sharper focus. All of them carried the same thought. The galaxy had just caught a glimpse of their strength, and that glimpse had worked better than any announcement ever could. In the halls of the Galactic Council, debates grew heated. Some demanded more control over Earth, others argued for closer monitoring, but none could agree because fear had taken root. Fear of what humanity might be hiding. Fear of what humanity might become. Still, no one dared to confront Earth directly. Not yet. The risk was too high. Better to wait. Better to watch. Better to whisper quietly in the dark. And so the whispers grew, stories twisted with each telling. Some said humanity had a dozen dreadnoughts hidden under the sea. Others claimed entire fleets rested on the far side of the moon. Some even said Earth had weapons that could shatter stars. Most were exaggerations, but the truth was still dangerous enough because hidden beneath the oceans, under the mountains, and across secret bases in orbit, humanity's fleet continued to grow. piece by piece, ship by ship, silent and unstoppable. Non-miles. Carter once again checked the heartbeat of the Iron Resolve. Laura Mitchell drilled her crews. Henry Lawson plotted in silence, and Ethan Brooks trained harder than ever. The aliens could keep whispering, it didn't matter. Because the truth was already moving forward, humans had stepped out of the shadows, and the galaxy was beginning to realize that the storm they had laughed at was very, very real. The day of the celebration was meant to be grand. Banners of the Galactic Council floated across the skies of Earth. Alien ships decorated with glowing lights hovered above cities, and their commanders gave speeches that echoed in every language. The aliens stood tall on stages built in the middle of human capitals, their voices filled with pride as they praised their own bravery. They claimed they had fought off the raiders. They claimed their fleets had saved Earth. The crowds clapped and cheered, fireworks filled the air, and the aliens smiled, believing the humans adored them. None, but behind the smiles of human leaders, there was silence. They listened politely. To every word they raised their glasses when expected, yet their eyes betrayed no true respect. Admiral Henry Lawson sat at the council table, his weathered face calm, his fingers tapping slowly against the wood. Next to him, Commander Laura Mitchell stood with arms crossed, her eyes cold. They let the aliens talk, they let them boast, because they knew the truth. The victory had not been theirs. The raiders had been destroyed by a single human ship, and now the galaxy would learn it. The alien admirals continued their display, marching in polished uniforms, giving out medals to their officers for bravery. They spoke of their fleets as if they were legends, promising to forever shield Earth. The human crowds clapped again, though many clapped out of habit, not passion. Some humans looked up at the skies with suspicion, wondering what really happened in that battle. Rumors were already spreading. Among ordinary citizens, rumors of a dark ship that had appeared, one no alien had spoken of. Whispers grew louder, but the aliens ignored them, still drunk on their own pride. In an haze, the speeches went on. The night sky suddenly shimmered. At first, people thought it was part of the show. Fireworks, maybe. But then the shimmer stretched wide and hundreds of shadows appeared above Earth. Huge shapes, dark and powerful, emerging from cloaking fields that rippled like water. The crowd gasped. Voices turned to cries of shock. Even the alien admirals froze, their words dying in their throats, because what appeared above Earth was not their fleet. It was something else entirely. A fleet that dwarfed even the grandest alien armada. On and one by one, massive human warships revealed themselves. Dreadnoughts with black steel hulls, carriers so large they looked like moving cities, cruisers lined. With glowing cannons, the Iron Resolve was there at the front, leading the formation with silent pride. The entire fleet stretched across the horizon, their numbers too many to count. The sight alone made the alien commanders stumble back in disbelief, their proud speeches forgotten, their faces pale. None. The crowd of humans on the ground erupted into chaos. Some screamed, some fell to their knees, some cheered wildly, not understanding what they were seeing. But Admiral Henry Lawson stood, his old eyes glowing with fire. He raised a hand and a voice rang out across the celebration, broadcast from every screen and every speaker, his voice calm and steady. "We appreciate the gesture of protection," Lawson said, his tone quiet, but powerful. "But we never needed saving." Silence followed his words, a silence so heavy that even the fireworks stopped firing into the sky. And Laura Mitchell stepped forward, her voice joining his. "For too long they believed we were helpless. They thought we could not defend ourselves. But look above you. These are our ships, built by our hands, forged by our strength, and ready to protect Earth as only humans can." Her words carried across the square, carried into the homes of billions, and every human listening felt something stir in their chest. Pride, power, and the spark of truth. None. The alien admirals were speechless, their mouths opened, but no words came. Their medals gleamed uselessly under the bright lights. The fleets they once bragged about now looked like toys compared to the human dreadnoughts floating in the sky. Panic spread through their ranks. Officers whispered frantically. Some tried to deny what they were seeing, but the proof was undeniable. Earth had revealed its secret, and the galaxy had just shifted forever. On from orbit, The human ships held position. They did not fire. They did not threaten. They only stood there, silent giants casting their shadow over the earth. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer under the wing of the Galactic Council. They were their own shield, their own sword, and perhaps something greater. Across the galaxy, millions watched through broadcasts, and millions more began to fear what this meant for the balance of power. Thought Miles Carter watched the reveal from the deck of the Iron Resolve, his heart pounding as he looked at the formation spread before him. Years of hidden work, years of silence, all finally revealed in one breathtaking moment. He whispered to himself, "Now they know." And for the first time, he felt the weight of the future pressing down. It was not just about defending Earth anymore. It was about what humanity would do with the power they had kept hidden for so long. And back in the council chamber, Admiral Lawson sat down slowly, his expression calm though his eyes gleamed with victory. "The galaxy will talk tonight," he said quietly to those around him. Let them whisper. But they will whisper our name now." Laura Mitchell nodded, her gaze sharp. "And soon, they will learn to respect it." The aliens had sworn to defend Earth, but in that moment, the lie was shattered. The protectors had become the spectators, and humanity had stepped fully into the light. None. The celebration that began with alien arrogance ended in human revelation. The fireworks were forgotten, the medals meaningless, the banners useless. Above the world hung the true shield of Earth, forged not by outsiders but by its own people. And as the night stretched on, the whispers turned into a storm. The galaxy had seen the truth, and nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy could not ignore what it had seen. The reveal of Earth's fleet had sent shockwaves across every empire, every council, every trading station. The aliens who once spoke of humans as fragile children now sat in silence, their faces pale, their voices uneasy. They had sworn to defend Earth, but they now realized the truth. Humans had been defending themselves all along, and far better than anyone had guessed. The revelation broke the arrogance of many, but for others it planted seeds of fear. And in the chambers of the Galactic Council, voices rose in panic. Some shouted that Earth was dangerous, too dangerous to be trusted. "They hid this from us," cried one alien ambassador. "They built weapons in secret," another argued. "They deceived us while smiling to our faces." The chamber was filled with chaos, the leaders of the galaxy afraid of what this new human power meant. But not all spoke with anger. A few admitted the truth. "Perhaps they were wise to hide," one alien whispered. "Perhaps they knew that if they revealed too soon, the rest of us would have crushed them before they could stand." Those words rang true, and even the loudest voices fell quiet for a moment, shunned to fare away. In a rival empire known for its cruelty, the reaction was different. They did not argue or debate, they prepared. Their warlords studied the footage of Earth's dreadnoughts. Their scientists analyzed every frame of the Iron Resolve's cannon fire. They realized the Galactic Council was no longer the greatest danger in the galaxy. Earth was, and they decided to test humanity for themselves. Fleets began to gather, soldiers sharpened their weapons, and whispers of invasion spread like wildfire. Back on Earth, Admiral Henry Lawson sat in his office, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. Outside his window, the sky glowed with the lights of human ships now openly patrolling above the planet. There was no more hiding. Humanity had stepped into the open. Lawson knew what this meant. He called for a meeting, and soon Laura Mitchell, Miles Carter, and other commanders sat before him, their faces serious. "The galaxy knows now," Lawson said quietly, "and they will not leave us alone. Some will fear us, some will hate us, and some will try to destroy us. We must be ready." Silence filled the room, but each of them understood. Earth had won the first reveal, but the war for respect was only beginning. In the rival empires' first strike, a massive fleet appeared near the capital of the Galactic Council itself. Not Earth, but the very heart of the galaxy. Thousands of alien ships darkened the stars, their cannons glowing. The Council panicked. Their fleets rushed to respond. But it was clear they were outmatched. Their ships began to fall. Explosions, lit up the void. Cities trembled as enemy fire struck too close. Fear spread across the galaxy. Many wondered if the Council would fall, and if it did, who would stop the invaders. It was then that the human fleet moved, not because they were asked, but because they had chosen. Above the Council's capital, space shimmered again, and hundreds of human dreadnoughts jumped into the fight. The iron resolve at the front, its cannons glowing like suns. The galaxy gasped as Earth's ships moved with precision, their weapons tearing through the invading fleet, their shields holding strong, their tactics sharp and merciless. In hours, what had seemed like certain defeat became a stunning victory. The rival empire's fleet scattered, their survivors fleeing into the dark. None, for the first time, the galaxy saw humans not as victims, not as children, but as saviors. The same admirals who had mocked humanity now stared in awe. The same voices that had doubted them now spoke their names with respect. The Council's capital had been saved, not by its own fleets, but by Earth's hidden storm. Billions watched through broadcasts, and billions more whispered the same truth. Humans had risen, and they were not to be underestimated. Ethan Brooks, the young pilot from the lunar base, was among the fighters who escorted the dreadnoughts during the battle. He sat in his cockpit, sweat dripping down his face, his hands gripping the controls tightly. He had flown through fire, dodged enemy blasts, and struck back with deadly precision. When the battle ended, his voice shook as he whispered, "We did it." He could hardly believe it himself, but deep inside, he felt pride like never before. He knew the galaxy would remember this day. After the battle, alien ambassadors tried to speak with Lawson, their voices trembling. "Why did you help us?" they asked, and Lawson only smiled faintly. "Because it suited us," he answered calmly, his words sharp. Humans had not saved the Council out of kindness alone. They had done it to send a message to the galaxy. Earth did not laugh. Out of arrogance, Earth laughed because they knew the truth all along. They were strong enough to defend themselves and strong enough to defend others when it suited them. That night, across the stars, the whispers grew louder. No one doubted anymore. No one mocked humanity. Every empire, every fleet, every soldier knew the truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were not helpless. Humans were a storm, and the storm had finally arrived. Miles Carter walked through the quiet hangar, the sound of his boots echoing against the steel floor. The battle was over. The galaxy had seen the truth. But here in the shadows of the iron resolve, everything felt strangely calm. The massive ship stood silent, its dark hull gleaming under the soft lights, its cannons still warm from the last fight. Miles ran his hand across the railing and smiled faintly. He thought of all the years spent working in silence, all the secrets kept hidden, and now it was out. The galaxy finally knew what humans had built, but instead of fear, Miles felt peace, because he knew this was only the beginning. Laura. Mitchell joined him, her presence steady and strong. She stood beside him, her eyes watching the silent giant resting in the hangar. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Laura broke the silence, her voice low but sure. "They thought they could shield us," she said. "They thought we were helpless." Miles chuckled softly and shook his head. "We let them believe it, and that was enough." His words carried quiet pride, because he knew the trick had worked. The galaxy had been blind to Earth's strength until it was too late, and now the balance of power had shifted forever and across Earth. Life began to change. Ordinary people went to work. Children played in the streets, markets opened, but everywhere there was a new spark in human eyes: pride. For the first time in centuries, they did not feel like a small world under protection. They felt like something greater. They watched the ships that now openly patrolled the skies. Human ships, not alien ones. And they whispered to one another about the battles, about the reveal, about the whispers spreading across the stars. They no longer asked who would protect them. They knew the answer. It was themselves. In the halls of the Galactic Council, chaos had turned into uneasy silence. Ambassadors no longer mocked Earth, no longer spoke to them as children. Instead, they treated human leaders with careful respect. some with fear, some with awe, some with hidden envy. Admiral Henry Lawson walked into those halls with calm steps. Every eye followed him. Once he had been dismissed as just another human officer, but now his voice carried weight heavier than entire fleets. When he spoke, others listened, and when he smiled faintly, others shifted nervously in their seats, because they knew humanity had become something new, something impossible to ignore. In faraway empires, new plans were drawn. Some whispered of alliances, others of revenge. Some wanted to test humanity further. Others wanted to stay far away, but all agreed on one truth. Humans had changed the game. No empire could move without considering them now. No council could speak without weighing their reaction. Earth, once overlooked, now stood as a center of power, and the galaxy trembled with the possibilities. Nathan Brooks, the young pilot, sat in his small quarters on the lunar base, his helmet resting beside him. He stared out the window at the Earth shining blue and green in the distance. He still couldn't believe what he had been part of. The battles, the reveal, the victory. He whispered to himself, "We're not just defending anymore." His voice filled with quiet wonder. "We're shaping the stars." He thought of the future, of the battles to come, and though fear flickered in his chest, it was drowned out by pride, the kind of pride that could drive a person to do the impossible. Miles Carter continued his walk through the iron resolve, pausing at the giant core that pulsed with light, the heartbeat of the ship. He placed his hand on the glass, feeling the vibration. "You were born in secret," he said softly, as if speaking to the ship itself. "But now the galaxy knows your name." Laura Mitchell, standing nearby, added in a firm voice, "And soon they will know all our names." Her words were not a boast. They were a promise. She knew humanity had only shown a fraction of its strength. The rest was still waiting, still growing, still preparing. And back on Earth, Admiral Lawson addressed a small group of leaders in a private chamber, his voice steady. "We do not seek to conquer," he said. "We do not seek to rule, but we will not bow and we will not forget. Let them whisper, let them fear. But remember this, the storm belongs to us, and we decide where it moves." The leaders nodded, their eyes reflecting the same resolve. Humanity had no need for arrogance, their strength spoke for itself, Nanoi. And so the whisper spread, carried across every star, every port, every empire. The humans laughed, it said, not because they were foolish, but because they knew. They were the storm. Those words grew into legend, told by merchants in far-off markets, by soldiers in the barracks of distant worlds, by leaders in their private halls. The story of Earth's reveal became more than history. It became a warning and a promise. In the quiet hangar, Miles looked one last time at the iron resolve before leaving, his smile faint, his voice soft. "Let them whisper," he said. "We don't need to shout. They already know." Laura walked beside him, her steps strong, and together they left the hangar, the ship behind them resting like a sleeping giant, waiting for the next call, across the galaxy. Stars burned as they always had, but now every empire looked at them differently because they knew humanity was out there, watching, waiting, laughing quietly, and ready to rise whenever the storm was needed.